talking important pennant games in June in New York, but they're not talking Yankees. They're talking, that's right, the New York Mets. Who knows if this edition of the Mets will be the same amazing Mets as in 1969. They'd have to go a long way, but yet, pennant fever, Shea Stadium in the 90s, June, yes, America, it has happened. The New York Mets are opening a two-game set with the Florida Marlins, and all of a sudden it's important. Why? Both teams are on the heels now of the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, of course, showing the way in the National League East, but the Marlins 4.5 back, and the Mets 5 back. Marlins 9 over 500 as expected. The Mets 8 over 500 as not quite expected. With me is Buck Martinez, and come on, we did not circle this series as big, but you know what? The Mets are doing it with unknowns, and now some of their knowns are getting in the act. Like last night, they went over Montreal 2-1. They say was the most exciting they've seen here in about 3 years.
Well, Chris, Bobby Valentine established a mindset back in spring training when he really stressed fundamentals. What he said to this ball club, if we catch it, our pitchers are going to be confident to throw it over. They're getting good pitching, and they're getting some key hits with guys like Carlos Baerga and John Olerud. Coming back from the American League, Baerga last year really struggled here, but since May, he has hit 360. John Olerud, a former American League batting champ, 325, 9 homers, and 40 ribbies. John Olerud's bats back, Carlos Baerga's bats back, and Bobby Valentine has the Mets believing they can make a run at the Braves.
Well, the fact that the Marlins are in pennant contention, they have spent for a pennant contender. We have seen great signs. The best record of anybody in March, I know that's spring training. They started 8-1, and they had an 8-game winning streak in May. But outside of those runs, we haven't quite seen the Marlins put it together. But I don't think you can just assemble a bunch of superstars and say, go win every game.
No, you can't. The expectations are very high because of all the off-season signings, but they've had a lot of injuries. Devon White was out for a month with knee surgery. Gary Sheffield had a sprained thumb. Al Leiter had a knee problem. Tony Saunders right now is on a deal. So this is the first time Jim Leland has really had all of his regulars together. And it's an important series, as you mentioned. This is a good time for the Marlins to say, okay, this is what we're all about, and we're ready to play good baseball now.
We have to beat the teams that are trying to contend with us, as the Mets all of a sudden have become. Jim Leland says, we got to get our big guy going. They have some big guys in Florida, but that means Gary Sheffield of dreams. Mets Marlins from Shea in a moment. Stadium, an excited New York Mets dugout, and excited the Florida Marlins dugout. And the Mets, you know, a lot of people didn't think that they would even approach 500, and who knows if they have 100 more games like this in them. But we spoke with Bobby Valentine before the game. We said, what was the plan in the spring? What was the plan early April? What was the message you and your staff tried to deliver to your ball club so that you could be playing like this at this point?
I think the coaches stressed it the whole time that there's a whole bunch of things that could happen during a game other than your at-bat. Let's enjoy them. And I think the guys have gotten into that, into playing the game, into slapping each other 5 when they slide and break up a double play or make a good defensive play as well as hitting the home run and the RBI. And that gives the 3 hours a lot more, you know, meaning than just those seconds of swinging the bat or throwing the ball.
The magic is back. I don't know if the sign man is back and everything that with all the entrapment of 1969 and the early 70s or even the run in the 80s that they had here, Buck, but it's exciting baseball, and it's exciting as a baseball fan to watch a young team gel in the little things, and that's, I think, what's happened here in New York with Valentine and company.
Well, what Bobby Valentine was talking about is the philosophy that started back in spring training with his coaching staff when they said, you know what, if we catch the ball fundamentally, if we go out and do things over and over, our pitchers like Bobby Jones are then going to become more confident to put the ball in play. Last year, the Mets were last in the league in defense. This year, to this point, they're 4th in the league. So when Bobby Jones goes to the mound, he no longer thinks about making perfect pitches. He's thinking about, hey, hit this ball to one of my defenders because they're going to make a play on you.
Best record in the major league is owned by the Baltimore Orioles, and no surprise, the Atlanta Braves are next. But the Marlins, who we're seeing tonight, and the surprising San Francisco Giants are tied for 3rd, and just a half game behind them are the New York Mets. You're seeing these Marlins, Mets in a night when the Yankees are playing the Orioles or the White Sox are playing the Indians. Why not? We have 2 of the top 5 teams in the majors. And now it's a chance to look at our Nextel Marlins lineup as presented by Jim Leland, who I know it's June. I know he's been manager, Buck, for 2 months. I told him, Jimmy Leland and Teal, I'm just not ready with that look yet. At any rate, his young double play combination on the top. Luis Castillo at second base. Edgar Renteria is at shortstop. Devon White just a couple of games back off the DL center field. Gary Sheffield of dreams, second most walks in the National League. is in right field. Moise Alou is in left field. Bobby Bonilla comes back to Shea Stadium. No, he's not hitting home runs, but he's hitting ropes, doubles, and triples. He's been a hot hitter in the month of May and early June. Jim Eisenreich gets the start instead of Conine the Barbarian at first base. Charles Johnson, excellent defensive catcher behind the plate. And on the mound, Pat Plum-Rapp, trying for his 4th win of the year against a guy that won his last start for the New York Mets, and a guy that Bobby Valentine, Buck, says has about as good a stuff on the staff as anybody, Dave Malicki, although his 1 win wouldn't lead you to believe that.
Well, he's 1-4 on the season, Chris, with a 4.52 ERA, but as far as flat-out stuff, Malicki has the best stuff. Good fastball, good breaking ball, pretty good changeup, and he'll come right at you. Malicki was involved in a 6-player trade when he came over from the Cleveland Indians back in 1994 in the offseason. He's had a couple of different surgeries throughout his career. First, he had shoulder problems, then he had elbow surgery at the end of last season, and he is in a position right now to say, you know what, I'm going to make a contribution. You've got 3 guys on the DL, and I'll try to pick up the slack. We talked about the defense and how it has had an impact on the success of this team. It's Gilkey, Everett, and Ochoa in the outfield. Some real good arms in the outfield. Manny Alexander is playing shortstop with Ray Ordonez on the disabled list with that broken hand. This is his 11th start of the season. Now we're going to really see what type of shortstop Alexander is, because before, when he was at Baltimore, he was sitting behind Cal Ripken. There's Ray Ordonez with that cast on his left hand. He broke it diving for a ball on a drive off the bat of Ruben Amaro here at Shea Stadium. He's going to be out about a month.
We're underway at Shea Stadium, and swing at the first pitch is Castillo. A grounder right to Alexander. You see how we script these things? We talk about it. They hit to him. It's 1 pitch. And now the storyline is complete. Alexander handles that chance perfectly. 1 up, 1 down.
Well, there's nothing like strike 1. That's the best pitch in baseball.
Well, so Castillo swing at the first pitch, and that's something as you watch the game tonight. Watch for Gary Sheffield to hack at the first pitch. He becomes impatient. We'll talk about that when he gets to the plate. He doesn't see many strikes. Maybe I just hack at the first pitch. He had a long home run the other day against Colorado on a first pitch home run. Surprised the pitcher. This is Edgar Renteria, the fine-looking shortstop. Boy, there are a lot of fine-looking shortstops in the majors. Obviously, the A-Rods and the Jeters are the ones that get the most pub, but Ordonez, till he got hurt, and Renteria here hits it to right field. That's going to send Ochoa and Everett back, and Ochoa makes the grab, couple steps from the track. And there's 2 down in the Marlins first.
Renteria is starting to show signs that he's going to put together a hot streak. Anytime he goes toward right center with that line drive, he is working on a pretty good swing.
So that'll bring up one of the smoothest striding players in the bigs, Devon White, just a couple of games back from the DL. The left knee injury, a little arthroscopic surgery, and now he says he's got his Achilles on his good leg, on his right leg that's bothering him. He asked me, he said, how's your good knee doing after a long day? I said, well, I'm not running the bases. He said, but if you're busy, does your good knee bother you? I said, yes, it does. Well, that's what's going on with my Achilles, because fortunately for the team, but unfortunately for my good Achilles, I've been on base since I've been back.
And you compensate for an injury, and Devon White had surgery on his knee. And he was very anxious to point out to me, not to say that he still runs okay. He says he still runs better than anybody.
Oh, he wants to get in that next match race, does he?
Well, he can fly as smooth a stride as anybody in the game. And not having him in center really takes away from their defense, because he's got range from left center to right center.
Malicki comes inside out swing by White, and let's see how well he runs. As Alexander chases it down, Devo will stop about a third of the way to second base. And the fans appreciative of the hustle by Alexander, because that had pool cue double written all over it.
Well, Manny Alexander really hustled down into foul territory, very aware of the speed of Devon White. Watch the big swing, and that ball goes right off the end of the bat. It's a little pool cue shot off into the left field foul territory. Look how quickly Alexander gets it to Baerga. Good throw right on the money.
Nice play. So let's see if Sheffield goes after the first pitch here. He said, I just had a talk with Skip, and he's telling me to be patient, be patient, be patient. He said, I can't be patient. They're not throwing it up. He went right after the first pitch. See? We have our sources down there on the field.
Well, you got to do your homework. 226, that's why he's impatient. He is not used to being down in the low 200s. 6 home runs, 17 ribbies. That's a bit of a surprise, but remember, people aren't too anxious to throw too many good pitches to Gary Sheffield.
Sheffield says his season began, and I really got to get used to this because I know I make the big bucks. I know I hit cleanup on a pennant contending team, and there's a strike on the fastball snapped on the outside corner, and Maluki is ahead 0-2. But he said, my first 2 games. Now, he has walked second most in the National League, 47 times to Barry Bonds, 52. Said he was walked 7 times the first 2 games in it. So I'm not making excuses. It just got me back on my heels a little bit. A couple days ago, I said I just decided to change. Now, Maluki with an off-speed pitch. Fools Sheffield. And the fans, some of them already on their feet here at Shea Stadium. The Mets coming up when we come back. The Marlins here in the top of the first, and now the New York Mets get a chance at the back rack with our Nextel lineup as you take a look at the Marlins. But here come the Mets. Carl Everett will lead it off in center field. Lance Johnson about a week away with his shin splints, and Everett's been doing a good job defensively. Edgardo Alfonso, very good fielding third baseman, hits second. John Olerud hits third. Todd Hundley, as good an offensive catcher as you'll have in the game, is the cleanup hitter. Bernard innocent until proven guilty, struggling at the plate. Missed yesterday with a bad back, but he is back. Carlos Baerga, 1 up by land, 2 up by sea, 3 up Baerga. He's been Baerga certainly ever since the month of April. Alex Ochoa is in right field, Butch Husky with the night off. Manny Alexander is at shortstop. Dave Maluki is the pitcher. Against 3-2, right-hander, one of the original Marlins, Pat Rapp.
Pat Rapp making his 12th start of the season, and when Rapp is on, when he can get that curveball in the strike zone, he can have a good outing. 3-2 on the season, pretty good ERA at 4.15. But control is a problem for Rapp. See the 26 walks, just 37 strikeouts in 65 innings. He does an awful lot to change velocity with both his fastball and his curveball. That's when he's most effective.
So we begin the bottom of the first with Everett. Swinging at the first pitch. Bonilla was in. Renteria back. Throw way offline. And now Everett's going to try for second base. It's a bounce away from Eisenreich, and he'll be in there. So there's a throw that Renteria probably should not have made. And not only did it cost 1 base, it cost 2.
Well, Bobby Valentine has impressed this team to be aggressive and look for opportunities. And right there, you saw that hand motion saying, hit the ball to the right side. Let's take advantage of Renteria's error. This is a base hit all the way once it gets by Bobby Bonilla at third base. Bonilla makes a grab for it. When Renteria gets it in the hole, he's got no chance to throw out the base runner. He throws it up against the wall, and look at Everett. He sizes up the situation and sees the ball go down the right field line, so he takes second base. Alert base running by Carl Everett. Bobby Bonilla couldn't make a play on that when he had the only chance to throw out Carl Everett.
Fouling off the first pitch is Edgardo Alfonso. Now, you know what? If Bob Shepard, the great PA announcer of the Yankees, was working at Shea Stadium. Now, of course, he will have a chance to do this in 10 days when the Mets play an interleague series with the Yankees a week from Monday, a 3-game set. But what about Bob Shepard saying, third base, Edgardo Alfonso? That will be out of play. I mean, just
that was
the name that
Edgardo
Alfonso, third base.
Well, Alfonso is trying to get the ball into the right side of the field. He has taken 2 shots at the right side. Bobby Valentine, before Alfonso got to the plate, said, hit it over on the right side. Got a guy at second base with nobody out. Let's move him up. Another good approach. You see the Marlins are trying to pitch him inside to force him to roll over on it and pull it on the left side. Rapp ran that fastball in on his hands there. Especially with 2 strikes. This is when you really got to grind. If you're going to make it out, make a productive out.
You know, that error by Renteria already is 11th this season, Bob. So that's part of, as Jimmy Leland said before the game, I like my young double play combination. They're young. There goes Everett. Ball bounced through to the right side, and that should bring a run home. Fundamental baseball by the Mets. An infield single, an error, running on the pitch, hit to the right side by Alfonso. He gets a hit out of it, 1-0 New York. You know what? It's not necessarily exciting for highlights, but it's fundamental National League baseball.
Wins a lot of games. You see the good approach as the base runner at second. Kyle Everett breaks on the pitch. He's in motion. Alfonso slaps it through the right side. Rojas, the third base coach, had to make sure that the ball went through before he waved home Everett. But the Mets take advantage of an error in the first inning, and they jump out on top.
That'll bring up John Olerud, hitting at 325, swing at the first pitch. Bonilla, Castillo, dug out by Eisenreich. And so this time the Marlins do play the good defense, and they turn the double play.
Well, the Florida Marlins haven't played that well defensively because they've been missing a lot of their regulars. Center fielder Devon White had knee problems. He had surgery. He was on the DL for about a month. Gary Sheffield, diving for a ball in the outfield, sprained his thumb. He was on the DL. Renteria and Castillo, the two youngsters up the middle. They're a good tandem, but they will make the mental mistake as Renteria has done here in the first inning.
Ball one to Todd Hundley. His home runs again. He's up there among the leaders with 12. And he did not hold up. Harry Wendelstedt working behind the plate tonight, the veteran whose crew had the Colorado-Florida series in which Dennis Cook and Andre Galarraga were now been suspended for 3 games and fined, although they were appealing, and Cook was playing tonight. Cook flunked Galarraga, and Galarraga charged the mound on Saturday. Here's a strike, 1-2. Harry Wendelstedt behind the plate. Larry Poncino is at first. Randy Marsh at second. Jeff Kellogg at third base tonight. Last 7 games, Hundley hitting .455. And he is as good an offensive catcher as you will see, certainly in this league, if not in the entire game. Last year set a record, of course, for home runs by a catcher when he clubbed 41. Breaking the old mark, Roy Campanella had 40 back in 1953.
Well, you see the most home runs by a catcher in the season. Hundley, Campanella, Johnny Bench in 1970.
Let's see, Hundley, Campanella, Bench, Martinez.
If there'd have been another panel, they could have squeezed me right in the bottom there. But
I'll tell you what the next names are. They're pretty impressive. But we'll tell you the next time he comes up. How about that? As Rapp recovers, gets a double play ball and strikes out Hundley. But the Mets, little fundamental ball, push one across. 1-0 New York. All right, Gary, thank you. A little excitement at Cleveland last night with Albert Bell back. And I like the way the Indians players, Jim Thome, Oral Hershiser, just to name a few, Mike Hargrove, the manager, really were upset with their fans, wanted to apologize to Bell and the White Sox, say, this is not what it, okay, dropping the play money out of left, that's fine.
yeah,
But throwing the bag, said, this is not what we're about, what we should be doing. And they were quite embarrassed as the home team last night. And I like the way they all talked about that right away.
yeah, they went out there. Yeah, just a little reminder for the fans, too. You know, that's not what it's all about. You go to the game, yeah, you can boo, say anything you want to say, boo Albert Bell for leaving you, but very tough to go out there and throw things. And Hershiser wanted to make a point that wasn't the Indian way.
So we begin the second inning, and Dave Malicki is 1 ball and 1 strike to Moises Alou, who was among the leaders in RBIs with 45, although so many of those came the first maybe 4 or 5 weeks of the season. He's cooled off some, but I'm not to apologize for 45 ribbies and 295. And Malicki pulled the chain on that one a little bit and goes ahead of him 1-2. Down on the dirt, blocked by Hundley. Malicki is 28 years of age, will be 29 within a week here on June 8th. His 3rd full season in the bigs. 6 and 7 last year, just made a couple of starts. He was primarily a starter in the 95 season when he was 9 and 7, and until he won last Friday night, His last win as a starter was September 1995. So Bobby Valentine and company saying, well, maybe he gets going here with one win under his belt. Lou fouls that one back. Count remains at 2-2.
Dave Malicki came up in the Cleveland organization. Bobby Valentine had a chance to see him when he was managing the Texas Rangers. And Malicki and Alan Embry, who is now with the Atlanta Braves, were two highly touted minor league pitchers in the Cleveland organization. And Malicki had shoulder surgery when he was with the Indians. That's a good curveball that's missed. When you think about what the Mets have done and consider the fact they don't have Pete Harnish, he's on a DL, starting to throw, joined the team last Friday on a regular basis. Paul Wilson, Mark Clark has filled in very well, and he has established himself as a good starter on this team.
Isringhausen, Pulsifer. Well, Lou gets the walk, and the boos are for his first appearance back at Chase Stadium since he went over to the Orioles in '95. Former Met Bobby Bonilla. This is a double reunion night for Bobby Bo. I mean, he's back at Chase Stadium, where, of course, he played for several years, and he's back with his, I can't say his original big league manager, but really, for all intents and purposes, his original big league manager, Jim Leland, who, of course, managed him those great years in Pittsburgh. Bobby Bo actually came up a White Sox, but as a rookie went over to Pittsburgh. So kind of a double reunion evening.
Bonilla's putting up pretty good numbers, although his home run totals are down a bit. Just 3 home runs so far, but he's been hampered by the nagging injuries that have kept him from really turning that bat loose. But he continues to be an RBI guy.
Well, he's hitting a lot of doubles. I mean, he only has 3 home runs, but he's still, what, 7th in the National League with 26 extra base hits, 21 doubles. You can see the home run production. I mean, 3 is just an odd number for him. Maybe make it 4. As Maxwell Smart would say, missed it by that much. Okay, so we now know that he can still hit the long ball, Buck.
It's foul. That's what Valentine says. Okay, that's a long strike. Watch the location of this pitch. He's a good low ball hitter, and that's where this pitch is. Down, out over the plate. Great extension as he really got through that hitting zone. Well, that's a good pitch to back it up with. You get him out in front with that fastball, he pulls it foul, and then Malicki threw the changeup and had Bonilla way out in front.
Well, the cheer is they I tell you what, the fans had to go a long way to that second deck. Nobody's sitting up there to get the ball. And when after running all the way there, you figure it was for a souvenir, they throw it back on the field. Welcome home, Bob. So Bobby Bo will come to what? Bobby Boo tonight, an extra O. Gets away from Hundley, and Lou will move up.
Well, that'll be a wild pitch, but it's one of those wild pitches that I'm sure Hundley felt like he should have gotten down and blocked. Malicki threw a sinking fastball. Watch Hundley's approach here. He tries to glove it. In the dirt, you see he tries to backhand it, and it gets away from him. He doesn't know where it is. Lou sees this at first base and moves up to second.
Two-two pitch on the way. Off speed. Crowd thought they got it, but Bonilla will... not off rather, it's count as full.
Well, that's a pretty good curveball Bonilla takes. Looks like it got down in the strike zone. That's that old National League strike.
Tough to tell on that angle, though. Harry had a better view of it than we did. 3-2 pitch, curveball again. This time it's in there. Bonilla strikes out looking. You look at Harry, said that was the same pitch, wasn't it? But apparently it was not.
Now, Harry got a better look at it the second time, and it looked like it may have been a little bit lower, but the fans here in Shea very appreciative of Bobby Bonilla watching that second curveball. Take a look at this curveball. He throws this a bit harder and got a little bit extra bite on it at the end, and this time Harry Wendelstedt said, you know what? That thing was just mid-thighs across the plate. Good pitch by Malicki.
So with a one out of Lou at second base, Jim Eisenreich looks at a fastball in the inside corner. Eisenreich playing because Jeff Conine, as you mentioned, Buck, struggling a little bit at the plate. And Eisenreich, you know, he's 37 years old, but he just comes up and he hits. a big component, one you forget about, but when that Phillies team got to the World Series in '93, he played a big role, and he hits this one down the left field line. Alou will score easily. Ball bounces away from Gilkey. Double for Eisenreich, and we're tied at 1.
Well, Bernard Gilkey got over to the foul line, and he was thinking about making a strong throw to second. On the play, Moises Alou scores from second base. Jim Eisenreich can hit. That ball was down away from him. He slapped it down the left field line. You see Gilkey tries to backhand it, make a throw all in one motion, and by the time he gets it back in, Eisenreich standing at second base. It's a double all the way.
Well, he was innocent until proven guilty on that play. But no question that the run would have scored, and it probably would have doubled anyway. So just didn't look pretty for Gilkey out there, who missed last night's game with a stiff back. Fastball to the catcher, Charles Johnson, on the outside corner, strike 1. Johnson, certainly defensively, he's won the Gold Glove in the National League last couple of years, is as good as it gets. They would like to get a little more stick out of the big catcher. Off-speed pitch, a little looper over Baerga. Here comes Eisenreich. Everett comes up throwing, cut off by Olerud. 2-1 Marlins.
Good hitting by Johnson there. Malicki had shown that he was going to use the curveball when he got ahead, and he drops a curveball on him, and Johnson singles into center in front of Everett.
Number 48.
Malicki threw the first pitch fastball for a strike, and then tries to drop a curveball on him and doesn't get it down and away. It stays about middle of the plate, and Johnson stays back, strokes it over Baerga's head in center field. Everett's throw is cut off by Olerud. No chance at all to get Eisenreich.
You know what, Buck? Eisenreich, I know the ball went over Baerga's head, but there are a couple second basemen that might have had a chance at that ball, but Eisenreich was just gone. So good job by him anticipating that it would drop in. If he waited, no way he scores on that play.
Well, he takes one look and sizes up the situation and makes a good judgment.
With the pitcher, Pat Rapp up, and the runner at first base, Johnson, everybody charging. Olerud from first, Alfonso from third. It's ball 1. Rapp is just 3 for 20 this year, and this is not the situation, of course, but one of those hits a home run. Rapp, one of the original Marlins, taken in the expansion draft from San Francisco Giants organization. He swings away, and Alfonso, well, it's as good as a bunt. Alfonso has to go across to Olerud. Johnson is second. We go across to Gary Miller.
Chris, we take it to Three Rivers. Jason Schmidt on the mound. He's already given up a 2-run homer to Ray Langford. Now Mike DeFelice gets beamed in the upper ribs. Jerry Lane knew that was a purpose pitch, and he immediately ejects Jason Schmidt. Has been replaced by Matt Rubel 2 weeks ago in Busch. These two teams got at it pretty hard, and DeFelice was the instigator of that incident. Back to you, Chris.
Well, DeFelice was the catcher when the big first baseman, Mark Johnson, came across, threw a little elbow at him, and then they got into a bit of a punch-up, so the umpire, doing his homework, saw that there was a history to that pitch and didn't let it continue.
Gary will keep us posted on that. Maybe we haven't seen the end of that situation this evening. Fastball, good snap on it, but misses inside to Luis Castillo, who began the game with a ground out to shortstop. Chris Berman, along with Buck Martinez at Shea Stadium in New York. Mets scored 1 in the half of the first, but the Marlins here in the top of the second have put across 2. We'd like to play the third one here, with Johnson in scoring position. If you haven't watched a game from Shea Stadium in a while, and you were wondering what this every minute this hum is over the TV set, we are there. I think they're using runway 34 tonight at LaGuardia, which means that about every 45, 50 seconds we should have a plane overhead.
Talked to Olerud about that earlier in the game, and I said, is this a distraction? He goes, you know, you kind of get used to it since you play here every day.
Takes twice as long to do an interview. Every question you have to stop. All right, wait till the plane goes, and they'll continue. Try sitting in the upper deck in December for about 75 Jet games, as I did through the years, and the planes, you really think the planes are almost going to land on you when you're in the upper deck here. That makes it nice and loud. But when you had 50 25,000 people yelling, you didn't notice the planes as much. Plus, your ears and the rest of your body was numb. Now, let's see. Buck, that's Delta. I think that's going to Cincinnati. We should have United going through here in a minute to Chicago. Yeah, there's the next one. Grandma, the second base. He can run, but Baerga across to Olerud. And the Marlins are gone, but not until they pick up a pair. Carlos Baerga will be due up second. He's become a regular here at Chase Stadium. Jerry Seinfeld, the Mets playing so well. Speaking about a team playing so well, what about the Detroit Red Wings? They roll into Philly. They beat the first game. Of course, we got John Saunders and Barry Melrose on the road for Quest of the Cup at 7:30 on Thursday night, and the Flyers and the Red Wings from the Joe. You don't think those fans have waited 42 years for this moment? Yeah, the Flyers want to come back, but the Red Wings have beaten first Hextall, then Garth Snow. Murray's going to go with Bernie Parent in game number 3 to try and turn the tide, but we shall see. Or at least Doug Favell might get the start in that game. But the Red Wings are, now you understand what they did to Colorado. And the Flyer fans have come to see that the Red Wings are playing some awfully fine hockey. And that place will be jumping. And we hope you join us tomorrow night beginning at 7:30 with the game at 8 for game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals and game 4 on ESPN on Saturday night. Gilkey, Baerga, and Ochoa. As Gilkey has worked him to 3-0 already from Pat Rapp. And he takes a strike 3-1. Gilkey is really struggling. He says, man, I got to avoid this Mendoza line stuff. There's a fastball in there at 3-2. Gilkey just hitting at 203. And here's a guy that last year for the Mets hit 317 and is a career 290 hitter. But he will get going. He's on base. Quickly to Gary Miller.
Chris, the Reds and Astros. Thomas Howard had a solo home run to put Dave Burba ahead, but Jeff Bagwell has come back and continued his RBI rampage. This a 2-run double. Houston starts tonight just a half a game behind Pittsburgh. The Reds are in last, but only 7 outs. Back to you.
All right, Gary, thank you. And a nice round of applause for Carlos Baerga, who last night had a game-winning RBI and a 2-run eighth against Pedro Martinez in a rousing ball game here. Both aces, Pedro Martinez and Bobby Jones, were tremendous. Rondell White, it's a double in the 8th to make it 1-0 Expos. Matt Franco pinch hit home run to tie it. And then Baerga with a double down the line with a fast bat. Fast bat on that ball. And the Mets won the game 2-1. Both aces were on. Pedro Martinez was 10-0 lifetime against the Mets until they beat him twice within the last week. And that really got Met fans and certainly everybody in the dugout up paying attention, didn't it?
Yeah, when you can beat a pitcher of the quality of Pedro Martinez, that sends a message to everyone.
Again, that bat was quick on that ball inside.
Well, Carlos Baerga came over here last year after he was traded from the Indians in a shocker for him personally. He didn't expect anything like that, but he hit 193 as a Met. But this year he's in great shape, and all of a sudden that bat speed is coming back. He developed a little bit of a front foot style, and that kind of hurt him. And I think it goes back to when he injured that foot and played on it in the postseason. He was hitting 2 years ago in the postseason with a bad ankle and really probably had some mechanical problems because of it. But here's a guy that hit 300 4 times for the Indians, one of the best RBI guys in the American League in the prime of his career over there, and he's a young guy. He came over here with the Mets this year in spring training. They had a talk with him, said, listen, you know, you got to change your work habits a bit. Let's work hard. And you can see what an average season was. 91, 95, 310, 17, and 92.
Ripped up the middle, past Castillo. Gilkey will stop at second. Now it's booted by Devon White. Safe at third. An uncharacteristic bobble by Devo allows an alert Gilkey to take an extra base, so the Mets have runners at the corners with none down.
Bobby Bonilla felt like the throw beat Bernard Gilkey at third base. Gilkey had stopped at second. Watch the base hit. Goes up the middle into center field. Gilkey sees the play, and when White gets to it, he stops. But then he sees White boot it and takes off toward third. White recovered quickly, makes a strong throw. Bonilla's there waiting for it. Looked like he put the tag right on his hand, but he is waved safe. Cookie Rojas said, man, you got to get down. Boy, it was bang, bang. He got his hand in underneath the tag.
Good call. Good call by Jeff Kellogg down there who ate his cereal this morning. Ripped foul by Alex Ochoa playing right field. They have a day game here tomorrow, the second game of this brief two-game set, and the Husky will play then. But just a night off for a big Butch Husky, and Alex Ochoa gets a chance. Yeah, Butch, brilliant. Talked with him for a while before the game, and he's really starting to come around on a much more consistent basis for the Mets. The pitch by Rabbits Owens. But just while we showed Butch, since he's not playing tonight, we were here, of course, for that Jackie Robinson game, and he is one of the players that wears 42 and always has in honor of Jackie Robinson, and he was so proud that night. We talked a little bit about it tonight, too, but that night he was so proud to be wearing 42 and the game being here and everything, and you know, it was just nice to see. It really was. And he's a young man that understands the big picture, and the Mets certainly have him in their picture. And of course, 42 retired throughout the major leagues unless you're already wearing number 42. So Butch Husky will be able to wear it for as long as he is a New York Met, and no Met will wear it after Butch Husky is done here.
Oh, Ochoa really got jammed on that fastball inside. He was trying to fight it off and put it in play. Rob comes up and in. You see the target from the catcher, and that fastball takes off, and Ochoa just gets his hands through and fouls it off to stay alive. Well, I tell you, you take a lead 2-1, and then the pitcher walks the leadoff batter, Bernard Gilkey, to start the bottom of the inning. That really encourages the offense. Baerga followed it up with a single.
Slap, but right to Eisenreich. Tries to go the backwards double play, which they get. The run does score. A double play the hard way. No RBI on the play, but we've tied it at 2.
Yeah, Jim Eisenreich actually made a mistake, and he knows it. When he stepped on the bag at first, he looked at third base. Watch the base runner at third, Bernard Gilkey. It's a hot shot to Eisenreich. He gloves it, steps on the bag. Look at Gilkey. He stops. Eisenreich looked at him and then goes to second. The proper play right there would have been step on the bag, go home, and you save that run. Eisenreich knew it immediately, too. Remember, he's an outfielder, just trying to fill in a little bit here with Jeff Conine on the bench.
So Gilkey twice alert on the base pass. The boot by Whitey was off immediately. And then the look to second by Eisenreich. And he was gone. And as we said, in case you don't know the scoring rules, on a double play, there is no RBI. But the Mets don't care. It's 2-2. They got their run, although they'd have liked for that ball to bound over Eisenreich's head and keep a big rally going.
Well, this is one thing Bobby Valentine's team has done this year is when they get down, they are confident that they can come right back and score.
Good chopper by Carl Everett. Bobby Bonilla throw. That's a tough play to make at first base. Potential a thumb jammer, but Eisenreich makes it. We've played 2. We're tied at 2. We've played 2. We're tied at 2. The Marlins and the Mets here at Shea Stadium. And, of course, following this, our next game, the best robbery in baseball. Barry U.S. Bonds and the Giants, the first place San Francisco Giants. Now, repeat after me, Buck. The first place San Francisco Giants. And face off at Chavez Ravine against Mike Piazza and the Dodgers. Ramon Martinez on the hill tonight for the Dodgers against Keith Just Plain Folk going for the Giants. So you talk about 2 surprise teams, the Giants and the Mets this year in the National League.
Giants are getting great pitching. Sean Estes, Mark Gardner. Barry Bonds isn't even hot yet.
Not even close. Not even close for Barry. He can carry a team for a month. As we begin the 3rd inning, Edgar Renteria, Devon White, Gary Sheffield. 2-3-4 for the Marlins. Renteria flew out to right field in the first inning. The Marlins just finished seeing the Giants for 2 games. A 2-game series that was split in Florida. Jimmy Leland saying, I really like this Giants team. A lot of professional ball players, they understand the big picture. Good pitching. Dusty has him playing heads-up baseball. But I really like what they have. I mean, he went out of his way to mention that to me because he wanted to make me happy. Ground ball to Manny Alexander. Smooth throw over to Olerud. Renteria's gone, one out in the third. The Giants and the Mets doing similar things. The sum total is much greater on these two teams than the individual parts, especially in the Giants case.
When you really emphasize the fundamentals and make sure that you eliminate as many mistakes as you can, it gets back to the confidence of the pitchers. When you're playing good defense behind your pitchers, they have a tendency to be more aggressive in the strike zone.
It'll be Carpy and Soup. Bob Carpenter and Dave Campbell. Soup was in Bristol yesterday. What do you get that cross-country thing down, as do you. Where were you last night? Seattle?
Seattle. Watching the Mariners.
You guys lead some big-time lives. I just lead my boring little life.
Back and forth, Bristol, New York, Bristol, New York.
Right. That's all I do. Yeah. Count is 1-1 to Devo. Probably upset with himself over that play in center field. I'm sure he is. Because he is one of the best. He's a 7-time Gold Glove winner out there. Remember the catch he made? Game 3, 92 World Series. I'm 90% sure it was Game 3. Could have been Game 4. The one at Skydome against the wall off the bat of David Justice. One of the best catches we've ever seen. Done by Alexander to Olerud. That combination is working tonight. 2 up, 2 down for Malicki here in the third.
Well, the Mets went out and got Alexander in spring training in March when they made a deal to pick him up from the Orioles. And Cookie Rojas, their third base coach, said, you know what, I think we have 2 of the best everyday type of shortstops in the National League. They lose Ordonez. Alexander steps right in. There's Ordonez, who broke his hand. He was here working out earlier in the day.
Can hurt him to sit, that's for sure. Here's Gary Sheffield. Does not swing at the first pitch this time. It's out of the strike zone, and it's ball 1. There's Sheffield signing one of the biggest contracts in the bigs. And a little extra pressure on himself to deliver for certainly what the Marlins hope will be a postseason appearance, not to mention their first over 500 season. And I think, you know, it's hard for them who have sat back. They came in the league the same time as the Colorado Rockies. I mean, Heisinger wants a winner, willing to spend for it, as he's proven in all the teams he owns. Here the Rockies make it their 3rd year. They're a contender last year, though they don't make it. And the Marlins get to break 500. So we bring in Jim Leland, Moise Alou, and Bobby Bonilla. We sign Sheffield, the huge bucks. Alex Fernandez, the huge bucks. And they have themselves a bona fide contending team.
Well, because of that, the expectations naturally are very high. A lot of people believe anything short of a World Series appearance will be a disappointing season.
Well, that's a little harsh, don't you think?
Well, it is harsh, but that's what the expectations are. They bring in guys like this. And, you know, last year, Tony La Russa went over to the Cardinals. Everybody said, well, it'll take him a while before he brings this team together so they have some chemistry. It took him about 3 months, and they played into the postseason. And that's what Jim Leland expects of this team.
Of course, Leland knows the league. La Russa came over to a new league. Not that he hadn't seen any of these teams or known any of the players, but Leland's been in the league since '86 with the Pirates. Very few managers in his class, Jim Leland, that's for sure.
Well, one thing he does is he just goes to his players and say, you do your job, and this guy will do his job, and I'll do my job. My coaches will do their job, and you don't have to worry about anything. He doesn't expect anybody to do anything supernatural.
3-2 pitch on the way to Gary Sheffield. Strike 3. Twice, Malicki has caved Gary Sheffield. The 1-2-3 third. We head to the bottom of inning number 3. 2-2.
The battle in the NL Central intensifies. Earlier, Jason Schmidt ejected for hitting Mike DeFelice. Now, Bennis hits Joe Randa. He didn't get ejected. He got warned, and DeFelice threw out Randa. 2-0 Cardinals.
All right, Gary, thank you. As we suggested, it was only smoldering at that time.
Old-fashioned baseball there in Pittsburgh.
That's where you want it. Steel City.
How about the job that Gene Lamont has done with that club?
No question. They don't have the record that the Mets and the Giants do, but considering there are three real great surprise teams in the National League, and considering all the injuries they have, and they're still, right around the 500 mark. That's Dave Malicki, Carl Everett, and Edgardo Alfonso, 9-1-2. And Pat oh, boy, just missed nailing one of his teammates. Malicki this year at the plate is 3 for 17. There's Pete Harnish, who is here most every day, and a long talk with him before the game. Starting to feel better about things, especially the last few days. Of course, being in his own battle with depression, which really, I don't have time to really get into it. He explained it all to me, that it triggers something physical as Malicki strikes out and there's one out. But he's coming around. There's starting to be a timetable now, which is great. He will pitch in the minor leagues, maybe, in a few weeks. They're not saying we hope to have you back by X. It's not that sort of thing. But he felt so bad that he let his teammates down that he wants to come back and be a part of this ball club. And he says, isn't it great what's going on out here with this team? Hey, he's a battler. Pete will be fine. It's a very tough thing to explain. As Everett leads off, be very brave. He says, no, I'm not brave. And yeah, you are. You're out front with it. The people have been very good with the media, fans alike, teammates. They root for him because he's a basic guy.
He's working hard right now, and he's starting to throw a little bit. He joined the club last Friday on a regular basis, and he's anxious to go down and get things together. And like you said, there's no time frame, and Bobby Valentine has the luxury of allowing him to use his own schedule.
One pitch to Everett. Ball is up the top. 3-1. Now it's just good to talk with him. He seemed upbeat, and that's good enough for us. Known him a long time. This team reminds him a little bit of the '89 Orioles, of which he was a member. The reason we bring that up is that they came from absolutely nowhere. You remember? Last to almost first. Toronto beat him out at the end, but had to beat him out. They're unknown, those Orioles. Chopper, Eisenreich fumbles. Underhand throw over the head of Rapp. So Jimmy really struggling down there on that chopper by Everett. And it's got to be an E3. And it is.
Well, it was a hot shot. He had to give ground a little bit, played it on the second hop, and when he did that, it goes off his glove. Everett pulls it sharply down to first base. Now watch, once he hits it there with his glove, he has a difficult time getting to it, but he should have tossed it on the line. He tries to loop it, and it's over Pat Rapp's head.
Well, what we've seen here from these contending Marlins is an error in all 3 innings, Buck, and that is not good.
And both errors have led to runs.
Yes, they have. Error by Rennery in the first inning. Error by White in the second, and now an error by Eisenreich in the third. That'll bring up Edgardo Alfonso, who drove in Everett with a single in the first. After the error by Renneria, overthrow to first allowed Everett to be standing on second base. So a single could score him as opposed to just moving him along.
Well, Valentine has some options here with good speed at first. Everett is 7 for 8 stolen bases this year. Valentine can hit and run. He can go straight steal, try to open up a hole by starting the base runner.
They really like the way this Edgardo Alfonso is played third base. Young man from Venezuela, 23 years of age. The Mets have had a checkered history at best at third base. I mean, they haven't been around forever. They've been, since 1962, so 35 previous seasons. They've had now 105 third basemen. Alfonso was the 100th. for strike 1 and 2. And of all the 105 third basemen that they've had, only 3 of them have played more than 250 games. That's not that much. That's less than 2 seasons.
They haven't really settled in on one guy for a long time.
Now, Butch Husky is one of the 105 that has played third base.
Now, Everett had thoughts of second base on his mind right there. A little extra movement towards second. Tad Rapp chased him back.
Little chopper that Rapp has to wait to come down. He will flip it over to Eisenreich, so it's your basic swinging bunt by Edgardo Alfonso, our Sunday night game of the week. And we would like to guarantee that it won't rain. These Florida Marlins against the Colorado Rockies. They came in together. They'll play together on Sunday night from beautiful Coors Field. Larry Walker and the rest of the Rockies try and renew hostilities, if you will, with their fellow expansion brethren. Marlins and Rockies, that's Sunday night. So the runner at second base and 2 out. Here is John Olerud.
How about the season Larry Walker is putting together?
Pretty good, eh?
Not bad. Former junior hockey league goalie. Galarraga and Walker putting up triple crown type of numbers.
Larry Walker, a little bit of offense, eh?
No, a lot of offense.
Olerud to the gap. Can Alou get there? Yes, he can. It hung up for him. And Everett will be stranded. We have played 3, tied at 2. Back at Shea Stadium, Chris Berman along with Buck Martinez. Glad you could be with us here on our first half of our double dip. Wednesday night baseball. The Dodgers and the Giants from Los Angeles coming next. Alou, Bonilla, and Eisenreich to lead off the 4th in a 2-2 game. Galicki pops up Alou. Baerga, 1 out. And as we do on ESPN in the 4th, 6th, and 8th innings, if you tune in late, you get to find out how your favorite players or your not favorite players have done on our inline box scores and the booze. Obviously, Bobby Bealey not a favorite player anymore, the Mets fan.
Bonilla Cade his first time up after he hit a long foul ball into the second deck of seats down the right field line.
Bonilla coming over as a free agent to the Mets in 1992. And was here in 92, 93, 94, and then 95, traded over to the Orioles in the middle of that season. So 3.5 years a Met. He never quite, as far as numbers, approached the 90 and 91 season that he had for Jim Leyland in Pittsburgh. When in 91, he was 3rd in MVP voting. And in 1990, he was 2nd in MVP voting. He had good numbers here at the Mets. Make no mistake about it, but never had a 100 RBI season, which he had in both of those that I described with Pittsburgh. And that's okay.
Those numbers are all right, but like you say, they're not that big-time season that you always expect with a guy like Bonilla.
He hit 120 in 1990 when the Pirates first arrived on the scene as division winners. Count is 3-1 to Bobby Ball with 1 out here in the 4th of a tie ball game. Fastball foul back. Milwaukee showed us several of his pitches tonight, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got good movement when he throws that fastball down. It'll run away from left-handed batters like Bonilla. He also has a very good curveball. Pretty good straight changeup that has gotten him a couple of outs here tonight. He got Bonilla last time on a curveball. Tried it again.
So Bonilla, who struck out the first time, will get aboard on a walk. Let's walk it over to Gary Miller.
Chris, Tom Glavine and the Braves happy to get away from home with a loss 6 of 8 in Turner Field. Henry Rodriguez jumps into one. and could put him within one, but Michael Tucker makes a leaping grab at the wall. Glavine has given up just one hit, and he also had a run on an errant bunt.
Well, as our friend Hootie and the Blowfish would sing, it was Tuckertown. This catch there, boy, Henry has that home run swing. Eisenreich ahead of that pitch. Look, he took a little bit off that, strike one.
Watch the follow-through of Eisenreich here. All the way around, and he thumps Hundley on the back of the helmet. That's why catchers wear those helmets.
Baerga in the hole to Olerud. Eisenreich is gone.
Carlos Baerga couldn't make that play last year. He has gotten himself into good shape. He's on a real strict stretching program. His flexibility has returned, and with that, so has his range. That was a tough play. Had a long run to his left, and watch where he fields this ball. He is back on the edge of the grass, rights himself, and goes to Olerud for the out. He's making good defensive plays. The bat's coming around, and he is making a dramatic contribution to this Mets surge here in the middle of the season.
So with the pitcher on deck, and the runner at second with 2 outs, Charles Johnson will get what Gary Sheffield has seen quite often this year, the intentional base on ball. And they will elect to pitch to Big Pat Rapp. We told you Rapp does have a home run this year. Rapp 6'3", 215.
Pitcher Pat Rapp.
Obviously, that wasn't a stroke of genius by Bobby Valentine. I mean, that is that's an expected move, certainly at that point with 2 outs. Ramon Morel. He smashed his first career home run at Pittsburgh earlier this year. Ramon Morel. It's a combination of a Latin American ball player and a French-Canadian right wing, eh? Ramon Morel, he shoot, he score. So Benitez at second base. Charles Johnson at first base. Count is 1-1. Chilly this evening. It was a nice day in the New York area, though. It started out about 48 degrees. I mean, this is June. There's a pitch in there, 1-2.
Well, Malicki not leaving anything to chance. Has thrown a couple of good breaking balls to Pat Rapp right here. He's aware that Rapp has that home run and going to make him hit a tough pitch.
Off speed, grounded Alexander. He's been busy tonight. Is shoveled to Baerga. The gamble pays off, and the Marlins strand a couple. Heading to the bottom of the 4th, all knotted up at 2. Back in the bottom of the 4th, knotted at 2 apiece. And a reminder that tomorrow night, beginning with John and Barry in the quest for the Cup, 7:30 Eastern Time from the Joe. The Red Wings look to make it 3 straight against the Flyers, who now have their hands full. That's for sure. 1955, the last time the Detroit Red Wings won the Stanley Cup with a youngster named Gordie Howe, and Alex Del Vecchio, and Ted Lindsay. And boy, they've been waiting. They know their puck's up there, and they can feel it now. That game, man with a Ranger hat on, they had a good run, but the Flyers got rid of them, and now the Flyers are in trouble. You got the old jersey, but the new hat. It's called marketing, I guess. So join us for our continued coverage of the Stanley Cup. The game to begin at 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
Now, you've got to believe there's going to be some people smuggling octopus.
Oh.
Huh?
If I'm a fish store, if I run a seafood store in Detroit, everybody calls for this, but Luis Castillo waves Eisenreich and company off, and Hundley has popped up. Yeah, if I'm ordering wholesale this morning, and I'm a seafood store operator in the Detroit area, You know what? Let me double up on octopi and squid here. I just have a gut feeling we're going to sell a little more of those this week. Well, squish the fish. Well, maybe here too. Octopi, squid, and fish. I think that's left over from a Jet game about 15 years ago for a Jets-Dolphin game. You don't really think of switching the fish for the Marlins, do you? I mean, it's more of a Dolphin thing. Bernard innocent until proven guilty. Count is 1-1 on him. He just waved it. I mean, he's way behind that fastball.
Now, you saw his average at 203. Pat Rappert made some tough pitches on him tonight. He walked and scored in the second. Gilkey, as Chris mentioned earlier, 317, 30, and 117 ribbies last year. He had a big season, and they expect similar type of numbers this year. There are two important ingredients missing in this Mets attack. Gilkey and his run production, and Lance Johnson, the leadoff hitter, who is about a week away from playing. He's been on the shelf with a severe case of shin splints. So if they get those two guys performing at the levels they performed at last year, that'll really add to this offense.
So one thing the Mets do not have, I mean, it's obvious, is really long ball power. Hundley does. Gilkey gets walked, so that's the second time he's walked tonight. So that's one thing that they just do not have. I mean, when all else fails, you know, long ball can bail you out. But Bobby Valentine knows that, and that's all the more reason to have everybody pay attention to detail.
Well, Hundley, of course, with 40 home run season last year, he is their one legitimate home run threat. But that's why you execute the fundamentals. That's why you take the extra base on the airs, and that's why you make sure you don't waste any home run opportunities. John Oler with 9 home runs so far.
Yeah, but he's not a 30 home run guy. No. He might hit 30 or 25 this year, but he's more in the teens, right? 15, 16 home runs?
Yeah, and he's got a chance to hit 330. I mean, that's the way he's swinging it right now.
Baerga, you know, is not a home run hitter. He has hit 20 a couple of times with the Tribe. But he is a doubles hitter. He can do that. Count 0-1 to Baerga. Gilkey, the runner at first. 2-2 game, bottom of the fourth. Off speed misses outside. Ball 1.
Baerga, as we mentioned, a 4-time 300 hitter with the Indians, and he got into some bad mechanical habits. He was really pushing and hitting off that front foot. Didn't have a real solid foundation on the back foot at all, particularly from the left side. You see what he did with the Indians. 93, 94, 95, and he fell off in 96, and he has rebounded somewhat, although it's early here in 97.
Well, that 307 pretty impressive when you consider he was in the 160s in April. Way ahead of that. Good pitch by Rapp. Pulled him. 1-2.
Well, that's what Pat Rapp has to do to be successful, is take a little bit off that big curveball. Big, healthy swing by Baerga, but Pat Rapp took something off the curveball and got a bigger break, and the velocity really fooled Baerga. You see, he was already spent before that ball got into the hitting zone.
Each of our pitchers tonight, Rapp and Malicki, coming off very strong starts last time out on Friday night. As he keeps an eye on Gilkey. Rapp got no decision, but went 8, gave up only 5 hits to the 3 runs to the heavy-hitting Colorado Rockies. And Malicki got his first win of the year. So you guys coming off strong starts, and they're pitching all right. Rapp's certainly not been helped by his defense tonight, and knowing that, he wants to keep an eye on Gilkey.
Well, you see the 2 runs have come because of the 3 errors that the Marlins have committed. A couple of walks. Gilkey has drawn both of those walks.
Chop just wide of the Mets dugout. Gilkey, what, 3 for 7 running this year, huh? 2 stolen bases, 4 caught. Fastball misses just a little bit outside high, 2-2.
Trying to catch that outside corner with a fastball. Johnson does a good job receiving it, but they can't sell it to Wendelstedt.
Harry has, looked at a few salesmen over the years, hasn't he? Breaking ball misses outside. It's 3-2. So Baerga, who singled his first time up, 41 hits in his last 106 at bats. That's about 385 in that range right there. Now the count is full. Take a chance if Baerga makes contact and just send Gilkey anyway?
Yeah, I think he's starting right here.
They do. He makes contact. And Castillo will have to go to Eisenreich. And they're 2 down. Gilkey is at second and always making contact, Gary Miller.
Chris, one of your favorites, the crime dog, unloading on Jeff Juden. His 8th home run of the year. The Braves had a miserable homestand, but they have busted out in the first game of this road trip at Montreal. Chipper Jones knocked in Glavine. Juden's error led to another run. It's 5-0.
Now the crime dog said, "Hey, Juden," to Jeff on that one.
Now, Chipper Jones has been slumping a little bit recently, and that'll be good news for Bobby Cox. And he's going to swing the bat a little bit better.
Breaking ball to Alex Ochoa with the go-ahead run in scoring position. In there for a strike from Pat Rapp. Ochoa grounded it short in the second inning. Fists it. Eisenreich turns. He took the polar route to the ball, but made the play at first. And Rapp is wriggled free. We've played 4-2 here at Shea Stadium. Well, some smiles in the Marlin dugout, Jim Eisenreich, because the last play was an adventure.
Well, a little flare down toward first base, and Eisenreich has had a tough night at first base, and he takes off, and watch the circular route he takes. Spins around and then kind of takes it over the shoulder. And then they had a couple of chuckles in there. He said, "Man, I'm seeing a little bit of everything down here." He's already been charged with an error. He had a double play that may have been played better.
This is Luis Castillo, and a one-hop throw from Alfonso was gobbled up by Olerud. The Mets were alert, and there is 1 out. Gobbling up our throws, Gary Miller.
Chris, New York's other team, the Yanks, are not enjoying their stay in Baltimore. They're down 3-0. Paul O'Neill jacks Mike Messina to the wall, but Brady Anderson takes away a 2-run homer, and it is still Andy Pettit and the Yanks in a 3-0 hole. They start tonight, 8.5 back in the East.
All right, Gary. Well, I mean, it is only the first week of June, but it seems as if the baseball gods are looking upon the American League East a little bit differently this year.
Well, the Orioles picked up free agents Jimmy Key and Mike Bordick, and they have made an impact. Bordick has improved the inner defense. Jimmy Key has been the leader on that pitching staff with a couple of other guys that are pretty good, too.
And they're beating the Yankees, which they did not do last year.
And they are really a competent team right now. Every aspect of their game is together.
I have not seen the Orioles yet. I know you have.
Their bullpen is real strong. Armando Benitez, the flamethrower out of that bullpen, has really been nasty.
Well, they play defense. They've had a big year from guys that maybe on paper you don't think of. But B.J. Suroff has been as big a part of that ball club as anybody. They've got it going now. What a surprise. Davey Johnson is managing another team with a really good record. Oh, what a play by Alexander. And a nice play by Olerud to prevent that from being an error.
Well, John Olerud doesn't get the attention for his glove, but he's a good fielder. Alexander showing his great range. Gloved that ball on the grass behind second base. Take a look at this play. It's headed for center field, kicks off the mound, and Alexander spins on the first base side of second. And look at the effort by Olerud to glove that ball and keep it from going to the wall. Great range by the shortstop. And he makes a quick throw to first. It bounces it way wide of first, but Olerud saves him in there.
Renteria slid in there. Hop right up. You know what Bobby said before the game about Olerud and the appeal, and it is a ball. He said John is a better fielding first baseman in the National League than he is in the American League. I said, no, what do you mean by that? He's still fielding. No. And that was not that type of play, but he says there's a lot more bunting over here in the National League. And Olerud has such an accurate arm because he came up a pitcher and first base. And he said, I like him going down, making the plays, and firing to second or first base. They don't do that as much in the American League. You'll see that he's a better fielding first baseman than people in the other league, which I thought was observation.
Well, he'll be asked to make that play more often over here. But he played very well for Tremont. I don't think he got the recognition because he was always a good hitter. You know, one thing that people forget about Olerud, he's a career .293 hitter before this season.
Oh, nice 363. We'll put that up there. Devon White, Olerud's ex-teammate with the Jays. Looks at 3-0 fastball, and now Malicki's control has left him, walks him on 4 straight pitches. And he struck out Gary Sheffield twice, but now he's got to come in with 2 runners on and just 1 out. Sheffield will have some big eyes up there at the plate, Buck.
Well, an infield base hit by Renteria, and then Devon White works him for a walk, and now you got to deal with Gary Sheffield with runners on. That's always a touchy situation. Remember, Sheffield was on deck. He saw Devon White take 4 straight balls. So you can bet he is going to be geared up for a first pitch strike right here.
Now we saw him swing at the first pitch in his first at-bat. Did not swing at the first pitch. Last at-bat was a curveball on the way. Oh, yeah, he had the bat waggling. There was no question. There was a hack. I mean, he was Puckett-esque in that first pitch.
As a batter, you think that the pitcher's going to try to get ahead after walking the batter ahead of you, and you can see he had a home run on his mind right there. This guy is not all about soft singles to right.
No.
He's thinking about doing some damage.
Fastball chopped into the dugout. So Malicki very much ahead, 0-2. Now where do you go? Eisenreich did a 360 and got the ball, huh?
Got a busy night. That ball's finding him wherever he goes.
Good magnets. Where do you throw here? Where do you set up your hunting?
You don't throw him a strike. You can throw him a breaking ball out of the strike zone.
He did not, but it's right at third. To Baerga. To Olerud. And despite getting bailed by Devon White, Baerga turns to 2. So the Mets go around the horn, show the leather, and Sheffield is doubled up. Watch this play at second. Bang! But the throw was there, and the Marlins are gone. Back at Shea, the bottom of the 5th inning, a 2-2 game between the Mets and Marlins. Chris Berman along with Buck Martinez. We had a good game here. Don't worry, other games tonight won't be decided till late in the 4th quarter. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to leave. Manny Alexander looks at a pitch outside for Pat Rapp. So quickly, he's ahead of Rapp, 2-0. This is one of those stats that when you read the media guide, and I always chuckle at these. I mean, they have to print it. I'm not saying the Marlins, why would they? They're only in their 5th year. But did you know that Pat Rapp is the all-time leading winner among pitchers in Marlins history? 36 wins. Creeping up on Cy Young.
Well, as you mentioned, he's an original Marlin.
Very highly touted prospect in the Giants system at his couple good season with Phoenix. But in the expansion draft, they could not protect him. The Giants, remember, had a very good team that year going into the '93 season and couldn't protect all the youngsters that they wanted to. Rapp became a Marlin. Skied. Charles Johnson behind the plate. And Alexander is gone.
Pitcher Dave Malicki.
Well, Manny Alexander trying to get something going here, leading off the bottom of the inning. Gets a pretty good pitch to hit and hits it straight up over home plate. Look at the frustration. He got a good fastball, and then he has to watch Johnson as he makes the catch on that pop-up.
This one is slugged by Malicki to right field, but Sheffield is there and not slugged that far, although it gave fans a rise a little bit. So very quickly, 2 straight pitches, 2 straight outs. Man, just looking at Rapp's numbers in the minors, why he was a highly touted player.
Center fielder.
92 at Phoenix, he was 7 and 8 in the area of 3.05. 91 at Shreveport in Double-A in the area of 2.69. Before that, Single-A San Jose 2.50. In Clinton and Pocatello before that, in the Single-A leagues, 2.64. So ERA always impressive. The Giants just could not protect him. And Rapp last year was 14-7. Not last year, but the year before in '95 was 14-7 with the Marlins. 11-2 after the All-Star break. Last season was 8-16. It was a reversal, but at times he can be impressive. I think he's pitched pretty well tonight. His defense certainly has betrayed him.
Well, he has pitched very well tonight, and he's been able to get that curveball over, and that's kind of taken the sting out of the Mets' bats. There's 3 hits for the Mets, and the 3 errors leading to the 2 Met runs.
1-1 pitch to Carl Everett in there for a strike, and it's 1-2. Rapp pitched at Southern Mississippi. Grew up in Louisiana, Jennings, Louisiana. Off-speed pitch, shot foul by Everett. Alfonso on deck. If Everett can get something going here on 1-2. Everett has reached both times with a single and an error, but not this time. Strikeout for Pat Rapp, a 1-2-3 inning. Bobby Bowe and the Marlins coming around. Top of the 6th, 2-2 game, Marlins and Mets. Well pitched by Rapp and Dave Malicki. And now we head to Moise Alou, Bobby Bonilla, and Jim Eisenreich. Well, you go to spring with a plan, and you come to June, and it's something else, Buck.
Well, this is what Bobby Valentine expected to have for a 5-man rotation. Harnish, Jones, Clark, Isringhausen, and Paul Wilson. But injuries robbed him of 3/5 of that 5-man rotation. Bobby Jones having a great season. 10-2, he was the pitcher of the month in the month of May. Mark Clark 5-4. Rick Reed has pitched well. He's 4-2.
Manny Alexander has been busy. 1 pitch, 1 out. Moises Alou is gone.
I don't care who you are, if you get good starting pitching, you look like a good team. Malicki has been very effective here tonight. Very effective. Had good movement.
Well, a small but certainly vociferous on occasion crowd. And again, the greetings for Bobby Bonilla. Bobby has struck out looking and has walked tonight. Ball 1. Fastball, foul back. Well, we talked a little bit about Rapp pitching well, and Malicki certainly has shown notice everything that Bobby Valentine told us. You watch his several pitches. He's got best stuff on the staff. You know, that's the staff with Bobby Jones. He's 10-2.
Malicki's throwing right now in this inning 93 miles an hour with good movement on his fastball, and that's what Valentine said before the game. This is the guy with the best stuff on the starting staff.
Rip, but foul by Bonilla. Malicki went to high school in Colorado Springs. Pitched for Oklahoma State and led that club in 1990 to a second-place finish in the College World Series, which we hope you're enjoying on ESPN this week. Majored in business administration at Oklahoma State. But his business right now is to try and strike out Bobby Bonilla. At least that's what the fans are imploring him, and there's his line tonight. Pretty good. Nope. Again, we tried to sell it to Harry Wendell, said he wasn't buying.
He is not buying those corners. It's an inside fastball. Look at the target by the catcher, and he just missed the inside part of the plate.
Ripped this time by Bonilla to right field for a base hit. So Bonilla aboard for the second time tonight, his first hit of the night. Always swinging the stick, Gary Miller.
Chris, we take it to the Jake. Albert Bell struck out in his first at bat. You know about the problems he had in his return to Jacobs Field last night. But he's not having problems with this pitch. Albert Lopez now out of the game after this two-run double, and they are down 5-0 with the White Sox still batting. They have closed off the section behind Bell that used to be freestanding room.
Very smart in Cleveland tonight.
Boy, Bell and Thomas got off to very bad starts, and they have rebounded dramatically. Bell with 13 home runs, now 51 ribbies on the season.
Count is 0-1 to Jim Eisenreich. Well, we had that game last Memorial Day when the Indians beat the White Sox, but they split that two-game series. The White Sox winning last night, way ahead of tonight. Well, I remember that a couple of years ago, the Indians and the White Sox had a 4-game series around Memorial Day. White Sox were swept in all 4, and Gene Lamont was fired right after that series. There was one game that was 6-0, and Winfield hit a homer, and the Indians came back to win it. This year, so far early, the White Sox getting the better of the Tribe. The White Sox team that we saw on Monday, though, try to play defense. Oh, boy, that's past Olerud down the line. Bonilla will round second base and head to third. Ochoa up there in the corner. One hop gets past Baerga. But that's a double all the way. Eisenreich, who doubled to left in the second inning, doubles to right in the sixth inning. And in a 2-2 game, the Marlins have a pair in scoring position.
Well, with one out, Jim Eisenreich now has used both foul lines. Chris mentioned the double back in the second inning. Take a look at this breaking ball. He just goes down and kind of guides it past down the road. That's how he cuts down his swing, but stays on the low breaking ball and shoots it by Olerud at first. Olerud can't come up with it, and Ochoa has to really hustle. Bonilla rounding second, moving into third base, and Ochoa gets it back to the infield quickly.
I always like the way that he swings the bat, Eisenreich. Good hitter, 37 years young, now has 6 doubles on the season, and Charles Johnson up. And they'll try a fastball up top. Now, with 1 out, we saw with 2 outs they walked Johnson to get the pitcher Rapp in the 4th inning. Guess you don't throw him anything tremendous here, right?
Well, you try to get Johnson to panic a bit. You see he's hitting 226, and maybe get him to chase one of your borderline pitches.
Infield creeping in on the grass with each pitch, and there's a strike, 1-1.
Malicki gave up a RBI base hit to Johnson in the second inning. It was a breaking ball. He left about knee high, really didn't break it off, and Johnson hit it into center.
Here's a breaking ball. Did he go? No. This is Larry Poncino at first base. Well, that would have changed things if it got to 1 and 2 for sure.
Let's see if Johnson can hold that bat back. It's a curveball, and he really fights to get it back.
Came in with a fastball, a chopper. That'll score the run. Alexander over to Olerud. Johnson is gone, but on the ground out, Bonilla scores, and the Marlins have a 3-2 lead.
Pitcher.
Well, Johnson really hit a good pitch. The fastball down out of the strike zone, and Malicki is frustrated. He gives up the ground ball. Take a look at the effort by Johnson picking up his second ribby here. That ball is low, but he hits it on the ground and takes a big hop in front of the dirt at home plate. And by the time that Alexander could make a play on it, the run came across.
Pat Rapp swings through a fastball with Eisenreich at second base. So Johnson has 2 of the 3 RBIs tonight for the Marlins. Gives him just 16 on the year, but he's given his pitcher a 3-2 lead. Fastball in there, 0-2. Rapp trying to just wrap a base knock that with 2 outs, Eisenreich would attempt to score on. I don't think Malicki's buying that. Off-speed pitch in there for strike 3. But the Marlins have come up with the go-ahead run, heading to the bottom of the 6th, 3-2 Florida. Yeah, the Mets have some work to do now. They're trailing the Marlins 3-2 in the bottom of the 6th, and the Big Apple, the site of the 3rd Jewel in the Triple Crown. Will Silver Charm become the first Triple Crown horse in almost 20 years? You'll see the Belmont Stakes special on ESPN at 3:30 Eastern Time on Saturday, and then watch our brother station, ABC Sports, with the Belmont Stakes. Not very far from here. Silver Charm, attempting to do what a firm did in 1978 and Secretariat did in 1973 and on down the list. It has not been done for 19 years. Watch it on ESPN at 3:30 and then ABC Sports at 4:30. That's this Saturday, the Belmont. Alfonso, Olerud, and Hundley, 2, 3, 4. I always thought Dion and the Belmont should sing the national anthem, you know, at that, shouldn't they? I'm sure they have. Well, they just bring them out every year. I mean, they play My Old Kentucky Home every year with the mint juleps. Why don't you bring Dion and the Belmonts out there? Just to, Alfonso back to left field, but that's going to hang for Moises Alou, and there's 1 out.
Alfonso looked like he hit that down toward the end of the bat. It came off his bat okay, but just kind of died out in the left field as he got close to Alou. Take a look at the swing here by Alfonso, trying to get something going here. Down toward the end of the bat, and it just didn't carry. He knew he missed it.
Well, at least the end of the bat didn't go, you know, fluttering into the infield, and the player like Wilton Guerrero, the rookie of the Dodgers, was running after the head of the bat. The ump said, as soon as Ripley said, as soon as he runs after that,
Yeah,
we don't even need to look. Yeah. Speaking of Guerrero, the throw that his brother Vladimir made here last night on the double by Baerga, but cutting down a run, they said his arm was corked.
He had a corked arm. He drew 1 hopper from the right field corner. Wow. To nail a runner at the plate.
Pitched a little low to John Olerud. 1-1. Olerud 0 for 2 tonight. Grounded to second. Flew out to left field. Mets just with 3 hits tonight. And none since the 2nd inning. So that tells you how Rapp was pitched. Single to Everett and a single to Alfonso in the 1st inning. There was a run home, and then single to Baerga in the 2nd. And that's been it. 3 errors behind Rapp. 45 for the year now for the Marlins. The leader in the National League is 50. So, I mean, that's not a stat that Leland and company are impressed with.
Now, and some of those errors come from the young middle infielders. Errors of judgment more than physical. So that's another good curveball.
Olerud is down. Never down, Gary Miller.
Chris, the Padres have put the Rockies in an early hole. Roger Bailey gives up 3 first-inning runs. Finley doubled in a couple. So did Wally Joyner. Tony Gwynn has now hit 14 straight games. He's up to 408. Of course, he's playing against Larry Walker, batting 407. Back to you.
2 guys in June in the same park over 400.
And you know, they both love the competition. Head-to-head competition to stay over 400.
And the crowd pick it up. Here's the big slugger for the Mets, Todd Hundley, and that's at Eisenreich. So 1-2-3 inning again for Pat Rapp. And we played 6. 3-2 Florida.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Kelly Springfield, America's oldest tire company, and by Wendy's and our fresh stuffed pitas. It's a fresh new taste.
Back at Shea Stadium, as Merle Harmon used to call it, the Big Shea. As the Marlins lead the Mets 3-2 in the top of the 7th inning, and Malicki and Rapp still in there, and why not? Malicki's given up 6 hits, Rapp just 3. It was nice to see, and you know you're Bob Murphy before the game. Original Mets announcers.
Great voice.
Yep.
You hear that voice, you know it's a Mets game.
I always enjoyed listening to the Mets, and Lindsey Nelson and Ralph Kiner and Bob Murphy through the years, some of the younger guys now, but those guys, now they gave the team an identity. When their only identity was horrible baseball in the 60s. I will tell you that I went to a Met game when I was young in the Polo Grounds.
Did you?
Yes, I did. 1963. They played their first 2 years in the Polo Grounds. Shea Stadium was built as part of the World's Fair and opened up in 1964. It's the 4th oldest stadium in the National League. Wrigley Field, Candlestick, Dodger Stadium, Shea Stadium. So it does lack some of the amenities that some of the new ballparks do, but it is not a cookie-cutter stadium from the 70s. Easy to get in and out of here.
I love the open-air aspect of the outfield. You've got 3 decks, but from foul line to foul line, basically it's an open-air stadium.
Well, you wouldn't love it as much if you sat on the upper deck in December for the Jets games like we did about 80 times. It was only Joe Namath and Jim Turner solved those wins. Those wins were tricky. But you're right, a lot of it is the old part. It's like Dodger Stadium is built, and Candlestick was built like this before it was enclosed. You know, the fans there's just some area in fair territory past the lines. Everything else is just over the fence. Luis Castillo will sit down, strike out.
Shortstop,
He'll bring up Renteria. See, bring your scorebook up there. It's in the upper deck. I know those seats. Box seats, upper deck. That's kind of about where we were. Edgar Renteria sends it a long way to left field, but the ball hanging tonight, and Bernard Gilkey is there. And they're 2 down.
Malicki still has good stuff here in the 7th inning. Still throwing that good fastball. Picked up his 5th strikeout to start the inning. Then gets Renteria to hit that line drive. Headed toward the gap. Bobby Valentine talking with his hitting coach.
Devon White, 1 for 2 and a walk, singled in the 1st, walked in the 5th. Ball 1. It's coming up as the 100th pitch for Malicki, so not bad. Certainly, you know, he's still got strong stuff.
Still throwing 92 miles an hour.
He's due up 5th. So, I mean, if the Mets don't get something going, I would expect him to pitch the 8th. Certainly on the pitch count, he would.
Well, just think about this. Last night, the Mets were down 1-0 in the 8th. They tied it and went ahead in the 8th inning, scoring a couple of runs. So Bobby Valentine's troops are pretty confident that they're still in this ball game. They know that if they stay within striking distance, they've got what it takes to come back and win late in a ball game.
Saw Bob Apodaca, a great name.
Now, what kind of
Wheel of Fortune?
Give me your nickname.
No, he never had one. Bob Apodaca never had one. That was really you bought a vowel from Banna, and you're all set with Apodaca. You bought the A. He's got an interesting coaching staff here. Apodaca and some great nicknames on the staff. Cookie Days of Wine and Rojas, the 3rd base coach, and Bruce Eggs Benedict, the 1st base coach. Of course, they'll be out there in a moment when the Mets come to the plate. as Devo will take it. It's 3-2. Here's your former teammate.
Cookie Rojas, number 4. Bobby Floyd in the middle of that trio.
Little flare by Devon White, who's aboard for the 3rd time tonight. 2 hits and a walk for Devo and 4 plate appearances.
Right fielder Gary Sheffield.
And that'll bring up Gary Sheffield, who has had a very rough night in the cleanup hole. The guy that Dave Malicki's handled tonight is Sheffield, who struck him out twice and got him to ground into a double play.
Now, once again, for the 2nd straight start, Dave Malicki has pitched very well. 6 2/3 to this point, just 7 hits, 3 earned runs. But he needs to have another good matchup with Gary Sheffield right here with a base runner on and 2 down.
Keep an eye on Devo first.
White's 5 for 7 in steals, but remember he's coming off knee surgery. He says he's got some aches and pains, so it might be a surprise to see him run just now. Besides, you don't want to open up that first base and give the Mets the opportunity to really pitch around Gary Sheffield.
Snapped him back a little bit, ball 1. The way they have Sheffield played, not a dead pull hitter, but certainly Baerga is over toward the bag at second and deep in the hole at short is Manny Alexander. I mean, look where Alexander is, and there's Baerga right there.
Well, anything hit on the ground, Sheffield will pull that, but you can see they're basically straight away in the outfield.
Fastball missed outside, 2-0.
Sheffield's got real good power toward right center.
Pitch. I'm surprised Gary didn't hack at that one, although it was going to be up high a little in there for a strike. You figure that was green light city, Buck.
Oh yeah, he's got the green light in these situations. Devon trying to inch off at first base, and Sheffield asks for time. Yeah, you don't give this guy the take too often.
No. Well, he's really in his own funk, as he described it to us before the game. Skied. Baerga and Olerud back. Baerga makes the play. So Malicki has solved Sheffield all 4 times. 7th inning stretch time in New York, with the Mets trailing by a run. Welcome back to 7th inning stretch time here at Shea Stadium, and now it's time to take a look at tonight's Circuit City game summary. And Pat Rapp has pretty much short-circuited the Mets thus far. They've gotten just 3 hits off of him, and no earned runs, though they've scored a pair. You see the 3 Marlins errors, but 2 RBIs by the number 8 hitter Charles Johnson, and the Marlins lead it 3-2. The Mets had magic last night in the 8th inning with a pair of runs against Montreal. Can they mount a late inning uprising? Bernard Gilkey hits it to center field, but Devon White is there, and there's 1 up, 1 down against Pat Rapp in the 7th inning.
Well, it's a cool night here in New York, and the ball is just dying. Anything to the outfield doesn't carry it all.
No, I think doubles are the way to go tonight, not home runs. Unless you get Andres Galarraga here, and he could probably hit it through everything. They were still talking about that 4 days later, the Marlins were. Shot that he hit on Saturday. This is Carlos Baerga. Singled and grounded to second base. One of the longest balls ever hit out of here at Shea Stadium. I don't know, I can tell our director Jimmy Moore where to really show this, because you can't. It's dark. I'll just describe it. He was an unknown rookie with the San Francisco Giants in 1971, unknown at the time. Came up in July that year, trying to add a little pop to a team that was going to win the National League West, a veteran team. A youngster by the name of Dave Kingman. You see the light pole there to the left of that sharp sign with the two poles straight up and down? After this pitch, we'll go back out there. Little check swing chopper. Bobby Bonilla does what we did when we were like 6 and 7, 8 years old. You bluff. You fake the throw. Decided not to try it, and Baerga's aboard with an excuse me single.
Yeah, he didn't have any chance to throw out Baerga there. It was a chopper off the plate with 2 strikes, and Baerga really got out of the box in good shape. But he had to wait so long for that ball to come down. When it finally got into his glove and he looked over to first, he didn't have a chance. 1 out base hit. The Mets have the tying run on.
Now, very quickly, just to finish that story, the shot by Kingman went pretty much through those light poles as it was described. There is one fence right behind there, Buck, and another fence which leads to the parking lot. He broke a window in a bus in the parking. The parking lot's not right there out of the bullpen. It's beyond that second fence, about 5:15 when he was a rookie. Wanted to complete it. Now the Mets have the tying run aboard with Alex Ochoa, 0 for 2, waved at the first pitch from Pat Rapp. Here goes Baerga. Johnson with a good arm. And even though the throw was in the dirt, that throw got down there in a hurry. I'm kind of surprised at that gamble by Bobby Valentine.
Well, I think they were probably trying to play hit and run right there, but what a job by the second baseman, Castillo. Take a look at the jump at first base. Taking, and then the throw is in the dirt. Look at the second baseman. He goes on his knees and takes the short hop and tags out Baerga easily at second base.
I don't know. Ochoa's not great with the bat. I'm surprised at that move.
I don't think it was a straight steal. I think Ochoa probably missed a hit and run. He's just trying to create a hole on the infield. You see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not exactly, Ricky Henderson. And Ochoa will fly at the right. Coming on is Sheffield. A little adventure, but makes the play. You mentioned it, Buck. It's a dank night. Fly balls can be troublesome. The Marlins have the lead through 7. Now back at the Shea Stadium, a 3-2 game. I mean, these are the games, Buck Martinez, that when you have your number 4, number 5 starter going against the other guy's number 4, number 5 starter, and you're both good teams, these are the games that add up at the end of the year as much as the ace against the ace.
They sure are, and when you think about it, Devon White mentioned to me before the ball game, he said, you know what, we match up pretty well against Atlanta. We play them tough. What we have to do is make sure that we concentrate in games like this against the Mets. When you go up against a team in your division, play them tough like they have here tonight. Dave Malicki has been very good, but the Marlins have been able to cash in on the 7 hits. The Mets have scored, taking advantage of 3 Marlinaires, but they still trail by a run. Pat Rapp has been pretty sharp, allowing just 4 hits in this ballgame.
So we head to the 8th inning with the Marlins ahead 3-2. As we told you, it's the first of a brief 2-game set. Tomorrow afternoon, Kevin Brown for the Marlins looks for win number 6. He's 5-3 against Armando Reynoso, who is 4-0. And here's Kevin. I mean, you can't have an ERA under 2 every year, which he did, of course, last year. Runner-up John Smoltz in the Cy Young Award voting.
270 is not bad.
No, I know that. Oh, he's had a bad year. Well, Kelly was this one has hit pretty well. And to the fence. And caught by Alex Ochoa. Robbing Moises Alou of a home run.
Well, that ball was out of the ballpark. And this is the way the defense have played for the Mets. Alex Ochoa robs Moises Alou of a home run. We talked about the ball not carrying that well here tonight, but Ochoa sets his sight on the drive. Alou drives it, and look at the determination. He looks at the fence. He times his jump perfectly, and that ball was clearly over the fence.
Wow. ball to Bonilla. Now the fans are alive a little bit. Lou's last home run in April. He was bidding to finally bust out of it. And you're right, Buck. That was clearly a home run. Strike two to Bonilla.
Boy, feel the energy after the defensive play by Ochoa. And now Malicki is ahead of Bonilla 0-2.
Fastball up high, a little inside.
This is what the Mets have done all year long. The defense has really supported the pitchers, and the pitchers have taken it and run. Last year, we mentioned top of the show, the Mets were last in the National League defensively. And take another look at the effort by Alex Ochoa. Lou's bid for a home run, thwarted right at the wall. Good jump, good grab, and he brings it back into the ballpark.
One-two pitch to Bonilla. Strike three call. Fans are revved up. Let's go to Gary Miller.
Chris, at Coors, it's been a slugfest already. Down 3-0 in the first. Downtown goes Dante Bichette. His 8th home run of the year, his 2-run shot. Larry Walker had a hit to get on base. His average up to 310. Tony Gwynn extended his hitting streak, then got another hit, and Steve Finley tripled him home. Joyner doubled in Finley. It's 6-3.
Despite the Dante dumping one into the left field seats, the Padres lead at 6-3. Jim Eisenreich has doubled down each line tonight as 2 for 3. Fans got a catch from Ochoa. Strikeout of Bonilla. Second time he's been K'd tonight. 6 Ks from Malicki. It's only fitting that he have at least a few with a K in his name. And Lou says, man, I really drilled that ball.
Yeah, the ball was just not carrying all night long. Everything hitting the air was hanging up, but that one was driven to the wall in right. Brought back into the ballpark by Ochoa.
Three and 1 the count to Jim Eisenreich. St. Cloud, Minnesota. Sky. Alfonso makes the play. And the Marlins are gone in the 8th. The 8th inning last night was magic night for the Mets. The top of the 8th was defensive magic for Alex Ochoa. Can they come back at the plate? Bottom of the 8th, the Marlins just lead the Mets by 1 because Alex Ochoa brought everybody to their feet, including him.
Moises Alou hits the ball that's headed out of the ballpark at the 371 mark in right field, and Ochoa skies over the wall and brings it back in the ballpark and gets a high five from the pitcher, Dave Malicki.
Well, it was a standing ovation for Ochoa and a standing ovation for the pinch hitter coming to the plate against Pat Rapp. Pinch hit extraordinaire Matt Franco, who had a home run off Pedro Martinez in this very spot. Pinch hitting leading off the 8th for the pitcher last night to tie the game. He will bat for Alexander. Butch Husky in the on-deck circle to bat for the pitcher Malicki. Franco is 8 for 20 as a pinch hitter with 5 RBIs, including the one last night on the home run. They wrote about him today in the paper of the great pinch hitters of the past here. Le Grand Orange, or Lee Mazzilli late in his career when he was a pinch hitter. Franco, infielder from Santa Monica, California, looks at a strike from Pat Rapp, 1-1. New first baseman is Jeff Conine, the Barbarian, who has gone into play for Eisenreich. He's the regular first baseman. Eisenreich retired the last time they go for defense. And the count is 1-2.
Well, now Franco really has to battle here as Pat Rapp has made 2 good pitches with his fastball out on the outside corner.
Rip. Castillo can't get it. Franco has done it again. Well, last night it was a double. It was Franco-American night here. Franco at the plate and John Franco with the save. John Franco says maybe we should hand out the free cans of spaghetti and meatballs. Matt Franco is aboard. And a pinch runner, Sean Gilbert, will go in for him. And Franco, a standing ovation.
A two-strike base hit. He gets the curveball and hits it by the diving Luis Castillo. Tough at bat. He gets things started and gets congratulations from his teammate. He gives way for the pinch runner, Sean Gilbert. Lots of things going on here. It was the 8th inning last night when the Mets won it.
Well, he hit the home run down the line, so Castillo had shaded him to the hole, part of the reason the ball got up the middle for the base hit. And now Butch Husky, the regular right fielder, will bat for the pitcher Malicki. Rapp knows that he has some power, starts him curveball away, ball one. Here is young Matt Franco, who's becoming a legend here very quickly among the Mets fans. 27 years of age, getting the job done as a pinch hitter.
Well, all of a sudden, Pat Rapp has come out of his delivery. This might be time for Johnson to take a trip to the mound. Go out and get Pat Rapp and get his composure back. Larry Rothschild is the pitching coach. Sitting next to Jim Leland. Well, what do you think, Larry? Well, let me go out and talk to him.
Benia's already on the mound.
Yeah, Charles Johnson should have taken the initiative to go out there and talk to him after that last pitch, because Rapp obviously came out of his delivery. Tried to hump up on it too much, and it was way out of the strike zone. So that's the time you take a trip to the mound and say, okay, let's take a deep breath here. You're still in the driver's seat. Double barrel action down in the bullpen. Jay Powell and Heredia.
Jay Powell really the setup man for Rob Nen. Felix Heredia, the left-hander, the rookie. But we get to this stage of the game, unless it's a definite situation, it's Powell to set up and Nen to close. Although Nen has been struggling as of late. Keep that in mind. Husky swings through that fastball, strike one. Husky as a pinch hitter this year is 2 for 3. Both of them home runs. And hot when he plays as the regular right fielder. Ooh, that one snapped, just missed outside, 3-1. All of a sudden the game is picked up. Ochoa makes the catch. Bonilla strikes out. Fans into it. Mets have the tying run on. Pinch runner. Trip to the mound. This is why you hung around. It should be 2. Castillo. Renteria, he drops the ball after he makes the play at second.
There's another example of youth on your infield. That should have been 2. But both of the middle infielders mishandled it a bit. Even Castillo. Castillo, in his rush to get the ball to Renteria, bobbled it, and that disrupts the timing. You can see he's trying to find the ball, and then when he tosses it to Renteria, he can't come up with it out of the glove. Gilbert is forced out. You see the hesitation by Castillo. This is a play that should have been turned. That gets Pat Rapp out of a tough situation.
So Husky aboard with the fielder's choice, and now a pinch runner again. This will be Steve Beezer, the rookie outfielder, 29-year-old rookie. The Beezer is back in New York, but it's not John Van Beesbrook, it's Steve Beezer. So he will pinch run at first. We're representing the tying run. And the top of the order, Carl Everett up. Ripped to Conine to second for just 1. Now that's a tougher play to turn. That Rapp was over there, but it was, I don't know if they were going to turn that ball. Well, we'll explain that in a minute. Tomorrow night, Quest for the Cup begins at 7:30 Eastern with John and Barry, and the Flyers and the Red Wings at 8. Game 3 will be a juiced-up Joe. Can the Wings in a 42-year drought? Can the Flyers get off the schneid? Will Bernie Perrant be the answer in the nets? Flyers got to try something. Meanwhile, back to the game. That was a tough double play.
Yeah, all they wanted to do is get the lead runner right there in that situation, and that's why they put Conine in for defense. Jim Eisenreich started the game at first base and had some trouble defensively. So when they got into the 8th inning with the 1-run lead, they put the better fielding Jeff Conine over at first.
This will bring up Edgardo Alfonso. Fastball up top and outside for a ball. So 2 chances to turn a double play, although we can't fault the Marlins for the second one. First one is not an error. When you get one out, they don't give you an error, but they've already made 3, and I mean, that's, again, a fielding miscue that's really enabled the Mets to hang right with them.
Yeah, that's just a ball that you want to see hit, but Castillo got in a rush, disrupted the timing of Renteria, who couldn't find the handle. Got 1 out, but should have had 2.
Well, they will be the double play combination, but this team has anticipated for quite some time. A lot of it's learning. Remember, Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell were young once.
Now, these guys got a lot of talent. You have to be patient when you're dealing with young, talented players like this, and they don't have many games under their belt. Much experience to fall back on.
Count is 2-1 to Alfonso. He steps out. 1 for 3 tonight. Everett, the runner at first base. Pretty good speed. Skives, and Castillo calls off Conine. Makes the play, and we will head to the 9th with a 1-run game. We played 8 here at Chase Stadium. The Marlins 3 and the Mets 2. Top of the 9th inning here at Chase Stadium. The Marlins lead the Mets 3-2. And it gives us a chance to give us a pitching summary brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Paint and Wallpaper Stores. And certainly both Pat Rapp and Dave Malicki have pitched well enough to win tonight, Buck.
Well, for the second time, Dave Malicki has thrown a good ball game. This is just the second time he's pitched 8 innings. 7 hits, 3 earned runs. Pat Rapp has matched him practically pitch for pitch. 5 hits, 2 runs. Both of his runs were unearned as the Marlins committed 3 errors.
Corey Lytle is the new Mets pitcher. Not Rob Lytle, the former running back of the Denver Broncos, but Corey Lytle, and that's what he's done this year. He's good strikeout to walk ratios, you can see in his 13th inning pitch. New shortstop, by the way, is Sean Gilbert, who stays in. After he was pinch running, he would go in for Manny Alexander. Gilbert, first was just called up from AAA on Monday night and got a base hit. First at bat against Carlos Perez on Monday night. And Gifts gets in the game and handles that line shot from Charles Johnson. There's 1 out. Johnson with 2 of the 3 RBIs tonight for the Marlins. And now coming up is when he came up with Montreal from the minor leagues, one of the best sheer forces to come out of the minors in a while, Cliff Floyd. But, of course, a horrible-looking injury playing first base and some other injuries. He's just come off the DL. They picked him up before the start of the season. He is just a shadow of his former self. But, boy, when he came up, Buck.
Yeah, he had a lot of promise. He just hasn't gotten back on track after that awful injury. He is pinch hitting here. He is 0 for 9 this season as a pinch hitter. But the Marlins picked him up right at the end of spring training to add to an already very deep bench.
Well, this one will be curving away from Bernard Gilkey. Can he get to it? No. He falls down. Floyd may think about 3, and he does. The relay, Gilbert's throw to third, not in time. Cliff Floyd with a triple.
Go ahead. Excuse me, Chris, that's his first pinch hit. That ball was slicing away from Gilkey all the way. Lytle gives up the 1-out triple to Cliff Floyd, and one thing he still can do is run. Watch this swing, and then he sizes up the situation, and once he sees it get away from Bernard Gilkey, he really turns it on. Gilkey falls down on the warning track, and by the time he retrieves the ball, the head-first slide has Floyd in with a triple. Gilkey's got a strong arm right on the money to the cutoff man who gets it to the third baseman, but it's not in time.
Well, it's a key situation now, obviously, with Rob Nen getting warm in the Florida pen. The Marlins would definitely like some insurance. Just a note on Cliff Floyd. When he was in the minors at Double-A Harrisburg, Buck, he was called up to first Triple-A, then the parent club. At the end of July, and I'm trying to come up with the year here, it's about 4 years ago, at the end of July, he had 100 RBIs. At the end of July for Double-A Harrisburg Senators.
Now the infield is in. Got to save this run.
Luis Castillo looks at a strike on the inside corner from Lytle.
If you're thinking about the possibility of a squeeze, it's very difficult with a left-handed hitter because the pitcher pitching out of the stretch can just throw it into the right-hander's batter's box. That gives the catcher an opportunity just to glove it, and it's kind of an automatic pitch out.
Of course, it ain't to be Hundley with a guy like Floyd in a play like that at the plate, a potential bowler over. Not that a squeeze would be, but could be.
Well, it's Hundley who ran into Floyd when he broke his wrist at first base right here at Shea. Obviously not intentional, but it was an awful accident that robbed Floyd of some good years.
2-1 now. Pitch misses inside. Taking a long look at the signs down from Rich Donnelly at third base. Tommy Sant, the coach at first base. Leland's third and first base coaches with the Pirates. They come over here, except Sant shaved the mustache. Didn't recognize him. Curveball. Past Olerud. The insurance run is in. So the triple by Floyd and the single by Luis Castillo. And the Marlins have picked up a critical run here in the ninth.
Shortstop Edgar Renteria.
Obviously, that extra run is very important. But credit Castillo with a tough at bat. Cliff Floyd gets congratulations. He delivers his first pinch hit of the season in 10 at bats. And he ripped an opposite field triple and comes in to score on the base hit by Castillo.
So the runner at first, one out, and Lytle tries to catch Castillo napping. Not the case. Renteria is up. So 2 RBIs for Johnson and an RBI double by Eisenreich, and now a single RBI by Castillo.
I start him right here on the first pitch. Try to catch him off guard. Nothing going, but that's a good time. When you give up that run before a pitcher has a chance to really regain his composure, hit him with another play. Boy, these guys are having some fun, aren't they? Boy said, man, it's been a long time coming. 0 for 9 before that pinch hit.
Same Barber today, obviously. I talk about raw potential. You're looking at it. When he gets healthy, I just wonder what we'll see. Oh, that's ripped, but foul. Running with the pitch was Castillo, and he would have made a bid to score.
Yeah, they had that hit and run going that time, and Renteria just hooked it foul.
So the shots that they could really get against Malicki, though now they do have 9 hits, they are starting to size up against Corey Lytle. Pat Rapp says, hey, keep rapping it. I'll be up to 4-2. And you consider Kevin Brown, Al Leiter has been hurt. He's not quite been as good as he can be. And Alex Fernandez, I don't think has come close to hitting his stride. And you get a performance like this from your 4 starter in Rapp. You can see why the Marlins, here's Alex. If the Marlins have not gotten the pitching and the hitting together, but they have potential to really go on some rolls. They had an 8-game winning streak in May. They, of course, were 26-5 in March, and they started the year 8-1. They've had a roll every month, but they could really get on one. And you can see what they get. Cliff Floyd coming off the bench. Renteria gone, and that'll bring up Devon White. See this team, Buck, as a contender, yes, but a threat for the postseason. Ripped right through the wickets. And the Marlins are teeing off on Corey Lytle. Let's go to Gary Miller.
Gary Sheffield.
Chris, big series in Camden Yards. Mike Messina bottled up his near-perfect game with a 5-0 shutout, then left it to the bullpen, and they blew it. They already had one run in, bases loaded, pinch hit, grand slam for Charlie Hayes off Jesse Orozco. The Yanks come all the way back, and they're still batting in the 7th of a 5-all game, trying to get back within 7.5 of Baltimore.
Charlie Hayes was aired out, wasn't he, by Joe?
Boy, Charlie Hayes drew the ire of Joe Torre, who doesn't get on his players very often, but Hayes didn't hustle down the line on a double play ball. And obviously, Joe Torre's words made an impact, because both Charlie Hayes and Wade Boggs haven't been very productive with the bats at all at that third base spot.
That's correct. So now the Marlins have already gotten one insurance run here, looking for another. With Castillo at second and White at first, 2 out here. Sheffield was really struggled tonight against Malicki, but now they'll try Corey Lytle. 2 strikeouts, a double play, and a pop-up against Malicki. A bad night for the Mets thus far all the way around. These Mets and Jesse Orozco, the ex-Mets, serving up the granny. And the Yankees, I mean, they need to make a statement down there eventually. Ripped to third. Oh, and it's off the glove of Alfonso. Here comes Castillo. Here's the throw to third. Safe is White.
Well, I know that ball was hit like a bullet, but Alfonso let it play him. Lytle has now given up a pair of runs here in the 9th, but Sheffield, first time he's hit the ball hard all night long, hit it right at the third baseman, and the third baseman makes a fatal step backward. You see how that ball just ate him up. He is charged with an error. Devon White, with his great speed, goes first to third, and Sheffield finally hit the ball hard here tonight.
So no RBI, but another run home here in the 9th, and that'll send a lot of the fans scurrying for the exits. So that great catch by Ochoa in the 8th, which kept the Mets within 1, is now being twiddled away by Lytle, or twiddled away by Lytle tonight. He's been hit hard, make no mistake about it. Now, after McMichael and Franco in the bullpen, Bobby just kind of has to hope out there, let's face it.
Well, if they have their regular starters that we mentioned that were missing out of that original 5-man rotation, then Malicki is down in that bullpen. And then you've got some real good arms. If Harnish is taking his regular turn in the 5-man rotation, if you've got Paul Wilson in that 5-man rotation, maybe Isringhausen or Pulsifer would be down in the pen, give them some depth. Jones, 10-2, has really gotten off to a great start here.
Yeah, but they don't. So, not a good night for Lytle. He's just trying to end it here with runners at the corners. Count is 1-2 to Moise Alou, who was robbed by Ochoa's catch. Don't forget, Giants and the Dodgers from Dodger Stadium. Coming up about 20 minutes from now. Hundley blocks it, nothing going. So the Mets trail by 3. If you're looking ahead of the 9th, Olerud, Hundley, and Gilkey, at least they do have the heart of the order coming up. I'm starting to ask you about the Marlins. Are they, of course, I'll do it on a 2-2 pitch with 2 outs. Are they World Series threat yet to represent the National League?
Well, they've got to have a run where they have everything working for them. As we mentioned, they've had a lot of injuries. Al Leiter just returned to the rotation. They've got the depth in the starting rotation. But they've got to play together as a team for a month or so.
The old double reverse, it doesn't go anywhere.
I guess you could say all the ingredients are there.
Yeah. They don't have that swagger yet. They haven't won. They haven't even had a 500 season. That was... I was talking to Bonilla about that. I said, well, in '90, you hadn't won with the Pirates. You know what made a big difference? Wally Fox. He had been there with the Mets. He came over and kind of convinced us in his own way that we could win. We were young guys. Myself, and Barry Bonds, and Van Slyke, who was a little older than them, but hadn't won. It was his little swagger. And you look around this team that got a couple guys that have won, but we don't have that swagger yet. Grab all the short. Gilbert. Olerud. and the Marlins are gone, but not until they pick up a big 2, keyed by Cliff Floyd's triple. The Mets need 3 in the bottom. Chris Berman along with Buck Martinez back in the bottom of the 9th inning at Shea Stadium. The Mets need 3 against the closer of the Florida Marlins, Rob the Flying Nen, who has not been as reliable this year, although you see 14 saves during the NL. Lately, he's had some struggles, Buck.
Well, he has blown 3 of his last 5 save opportunities. He's got 4 blown saves on the season, but this is the life of a closer. You come in with the game on the line. Now he's got a little bit of a cushion. A couple of big runs scoring in the top half of the inning.
Well, the Mets have Olerud, Hundley, and Gilkey. 3, 4, 5, and then Baerga 6. So these are the guys that can get it done for him. Boy, those 2 runs loom awfully large now. The closer's dream coming in with a 3-run lead in the 9th, but not 1. One thing you know about Rob Nen, whose father, Dick Nen, played first base for several teams in the 60s. I remember watching him as a Washington Senator, Dick Nen. One thing about Nen is he can bring the gas.
He's got a little hesitation in his delivery when he gets that front foot off the ground. There's a bit of a hesitation, and that has a tendency to kind of disrupt the flow for the hitter. And when it's at 97, anything can cause you problems. 97 miles an hour. That's what Nen is throwing right now.
That's why he's the Flying Nen. You don't think I'm just talking about Sally Field?
Now, turbocharged flying.
He 35 saves a year ago. 23 the year before that. For our good friend, Don't Walk Away, Renee Latch. There's another era with greater expectations. Saving games that might get you to the postseason. The Marlins. That's a foul ball. The Marlins have had 4 seasons in the bigs, all of them losing seasons. We should mention that no team has gone longer without a 500 season than the Mets. 6 in a row without a winning season. So for these teams in the 90s, there you go tonight. The heart of the order has not exactly been beating very loudly.
Now, credit Pat Rapp with doing a good job using that curveball.
He was good tonight, Buck. No question about it.
Well, he changed speed very effectively with his curveball, and he made good pitches with that fastball on the inside and the outside part of the plate. Just 5 hits for the Mets.
2-2 now to Olerud. The heart of the order has been more like the telltale heart for you Edgar Allan Poe fans. Fans of the macabre. Ordonez trying to exhort his teammates. Feeling strange not being able to be a part of this for the next month and a half. Ooh, Olerud took a tough pitch for the count of 3-2. Payoff pitch, check swing. If he hustles, he might get there, but no. It surprised Olerud as much as anyone else that he didn't get out of the box. 1 down, and now it's time for our Kelly Springfield Tire key plays of the game. With the score 3-2 Marlins, Alex Ochoa. Rob Moises a home run. But in the top of the 9th, Cliff Floyd off Corey Lytle, the reliever. Triples, past the reach of Bernard, innocent until proven guilty. He comes around to score. The Marlins pick up 2 in the 9th. And a couple of RBIs for Charles Johnson. And Floyd's pinch hit. And the Marlins close to winning the first game of this 2-game set. Club split 2 last week in New York. So the Mets have not lost, and of course a 2-game series. The Mets have not lost a series since April when they played the Expos. That's how well they've been playing.
Now, that's your goal when you set out to try to have a good season. When you consider, you know what, if we can win most of the series we play, we're going to have a good season. Carlos Baerga's resurgence since the end of April has enabled this team to play well. He, along with John Olerud, have really added some punch to this offense.
Well, they just got a piece of that one, and then is ahead of him 1-2. Only 0 for 3 tonight. Mets got a run of the first, run of the second, and that's been it. Pat Rapp, and now Nen trying to shut the door. Mets trying to get something going. Pete Harnish company just give me a base runner here, a little crowd noise, see if we can get going.
Alex Ochoa with that great catch off the bat of Moises Alou. That looked like it might be the spark that would get the Mets back into this ball game, but then the Marlins added 2 in the top of the ninth.
And they ran by air guys. Still disagree with that, or however, I don't know the original plan was, but Nen has come in, and I know what his original plan is, a 1-2-3 ninth, and he's 2/3 of the way there. Don't forget the Giants and Dodgers coming up after us, and after Gary cleans up in the studio. Unless the Mets get some magic going, that's a tough pitch to hit.
Yeah, that's that splitter that he'll throw from time to time, and that is a difficult pitch to catch up to after you've been faced with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Right if you get work. Bernard Gilkey with Baerga on deck, the last hope of the Mets. Much of this crowd of 17,083 heading for the exits, but the faithful remain. Hey, look, the Mets have provided them in these 2 months with much better baseball than they would imagine. The best record in New York. And they're already buzzing about that 3-game series between the Mets and Yankees starting a week from Monday night at Yankee Stadium. As interleague play gets set to go at the end of next week. My goodness.
That's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of good matchups coming in the next few weeks. Mets and the Yankees.
Well, it'll be fun. It'll be different. It'll be fun. It'll give us something to talk about. New matchups, new ballparks, new situations.
I think the ball players looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
So the Mets are anxious to go over to Yankee Stadium and play in that ballpark.
You know the first team isn't here to Shea Stadium? The Red Sox. Mookie Wilson, hopefully by that time he's had some troubles at home and tragedies, I should say, not troubles, and some tragedies, and a heart out to Mookie. He should be in the first base coach's box, very close to where a ground ball that he hit once upon a time dribbled. It's just fitting that Boston is the first team in here. I find that somewhat intriguing. That's Friday night, I believe. Friday. Gilkey fouls it back. And that'll be our Sunday night game, the 3rd game of that. You're not going to see any clips from that series, you think, on Sunday Night Baseball, do you?
Gary Carter, Wright Evans, Wade Boggs sitting on the bench.
Oh, God. I'm sorry I even brought that up. 2-2 pitch, 1 strike away for the Marlins. And there it is. Rob Nen strikes out 2 of the 3 that he faces. The Marlins 10 above 500. And they win the first of this 2-game set here against the Mets. By the count of 5-2 in a game very well pitched by Pat Rapp. Nen comes up with the save by the Marlins. Clip Floyd, a big pinch hit, 2 RBIs for Charles Johnson. And we hope you enjoyed the first half of our double dip on Wednesday Night Baseball with the Giants and the Dodgers coming up next. For Buck Martinez and all of us here at Shea Stadium, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Once again, that final. The Marlins over the Mets 5-2. Now let's head to the Baseball Tonight studio and Gary Miller.